Okay, response to S and his response to my Why I Am an Antinatalist video. I watched the whole thing, took some notes. Hopefully I can, make this somewhat short. Okay, so, quoting you, if they are able to decide, they are able not to decide. Okay, so we're talking about people that have the ability to choose. And quoting you again, after a while I went to Merriam-Webster. I don't know why you did that. Well, there's a couple of reasons. One, it was your suggestion that I go to more than one source to get a definition of something. I used to use Merriam-Webster as my primary, but they started having all these pop-ups and ads you had to skip, and now you'll open up a whole new window and what have you. So that's why I stopped using Merriam-Webster. But yeah, you recommended using different sources, and that was a source you gave, so I went to check it out. Okay, quoting you again, if they were unable to not procreate, they wouldn't be unethical because it wouldn't be their choice. Well, there I'd have to still disagree, because ethical by Merriam-Webster's is conforming to accepted standards of conduct. And just because whatever they just had to do something, they had no choice, the behavior is still not acceptable. So it's not a matter of choice or not having the choice. The behavior is still wrong. And here's a key one. I'm quoting you. You are talking about people that are able to choose. Okay. But how do you get from that statement to I'm talking about people that are able to choose, to all people, right? You're saying I'm talking about people that are able to choose, but you're saying I'm proposing I'm talking about all people. So, yeah. Am I missing something there? You said I am talking about people that are able to choose, but then you're saying I'm proposing that it's all people, that I'm talking about all people. So, yeah, I mean, as my channel suggests, I'm a determinist, so yeah, I mean, people that grow up in a Christian or a Muslim family, they have been damaged by the propaganda of the God of Abraham. So yeah, I am talking about people that are able to choose, people that are rational. I mean, with religious people, the first thing to do with them is get them over their delusion. All right, if they're deluded, yeah, they're not really able to choose, because they've been indoctrinated. They're going to choose according to their particular indoctrination. So yeah, everybody is a result of the circumstances they've been put into. And determinism states that if you're born into a Muslim family, the odds are extremely high you're going to be a Muslim too, unless you get input from somebody else. Even then it might be very difficult, because they're so indoctrinated they won't accept that what they believe is a myth. So yeah, I am talking about people that are able to choose. Okay, by using the word, quoting you again, by using the word arbitrary, you are saying they are mentally capable of choosing. Okay, but see, but then you're saying, I am saying it's all people. So again, maybe I'm missing something. But yeah, I am talking about people that are able to choose, not people that aren't able to choose. Quoting you, but people don't have babies because they don't care. Agreed. They are assholes, and they are not ethical. Yes, that was kind of, yeah, people don't do it because they don't care, but I mean, maybe they do. Maybe they look at the, I guess what I was trying to say, they don't care that they're risking the welfare of another. They want to have a baby. All right. Babies happen by accident. Yes, babies do happen by accident. So yeah, they didn't make it. They may have had the ability to choose, but accidents happen. So that wouldn't be a choice, but it's still wrong, because if it's an accident, you can have an abortion. So that would be your choice, to have an abortion or not. If you don't have the abortion, then you've chosen to impose life on another. When you have a baby, quoting you, when you have a baby, you are not imposing your will on the baby. Well, that's where we're going to have to disagree. I don't know how else you can, I don't know how you can say it's not an imposition. You're bringing them into existence by your will. You're imposing existence, which is a burden and or an obligation. You've imposed your will on the new being. Quoting you, you could argue that once the baby is in existence, the parents impose their will on the baby. Well, that's true. You could argue that, but that doesn't change the fact that by the mere fact of bringing them into existence, you've imposed your will on them. Okay, I'm not going to fabricate a proposition that is not your premise, but that's, yeah, knowingly, sure. I mean, but again, you're saying, I mean, in one case you're saying, I am talking about people that are able to choose, but then you're saying, I am talking about all people. So, there, I mean, again, maybe I'm missing something, but okay, the use of the word arbitrary. Like I've said, it was when I created the argument, I used the word arbitrary intuitively, and just today I remembered a conversation I had online with somebody about people who follow the band Tool. How they seem to, well, I mean, the lyrics of Tool are rather dark, and she was stating that Tool fans, she put it, they are arbitrarily sacrificing beauty on the altar of ugly. And I responded, what if they thoughtfully sacrifice beauty on the altar of ugly? In other words, the antonym or near antonym of arbitrary is thoughtfully. So, yeah, I'm saying people who procreate aren't putting careful thought into what they are doing. It's arbitrary. People that have babies, quoting you again, people that have babies are not considered to be people that impose their will. Okay, yeah, perhaps in every other instance in their life they're not the type that do that, but once they procreate, they have in fact imposed their will on the baby by bringing them into existence. I mean, the religious could be perfectly rational in every other aspect of their life, but they're still going to try to argue that Jesus Christ is your Savior when that's complete nonsense. So, anyhow. If it doesn't exist, you can't force your will upon it. Right. But by bringing them into existence, you are, and you don't like the word forcing, but you're imposing your will on it. You are saying you are going to live by my decision. You're imposing it. Yeah, yeah. Things that don't exist cannot be forced to do anything because they don't exist. You can't harm them. You can't give them pleasure. They don't exist. But when you bring something into existence, you have therefore imposed upon it. Okay. Okay, you are saying I am using arbitrary as just because one wants to. And yes, I have said that. But I've also said that I also used the dictionary.com definition and then said they're doing it just without reason or justification. And by using if I were to say just because you want to, within that is a whole bunch of propositions, right? Like no consideration for fairness, necessity, justice, potential harm, and so on. I mean, that's a pretty broad statement, just because one wants to, right? I think you might agree to that. Okay, quoting you, people that want something do it because they don't see a reason not to. Well, but in this case, there are reasons not to. It's because you don't see the reason doesn't mean there's not a reason not to. They haven't given it careful thought. The rapist wants to rape and does it. The rapist is wrong even if the rapist couldn't think of a reason not to do it. There is a reason not to do it. Okay, you're saying if they have the money, there's no reason to not have a baby. I disagree. There are still reasons to not have a baby, regardless of how much money. I mean, look, there's some rich people that have kids that are just screwed up. There are reasons not to have a baby. That's the whole point of the argument anti-natalists are making. There are reasons not to have a baby, and there's no good reason to have a baby. Okay, you're saying drop the straw man. I guess, you know, all I'm trying to say, I mean, propositions I would think fall under the umbrella of a logical argument, because when you're making the logical argument, there are propositions in there. So if what you're saying, if it's not a legit proposition, you have ipso facto presented a distorted version of my premise. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying you're trying to, you know, discredit my argument. I'm saying by the very fact you presented a distorted version by presenting a proposition that is not legit, yeah, that's the definition of a straw man, by presenting a distorted version of the premise. Anyhow. Okay, you said, I'm talking about the creator now. You said it's temporal, spatial, physical, more than that. You know, universe is big. 2 causes 7. You're saying, you're still saying I'm not using cause. I'm not properly using cause, which I'm still saying I'll get to that later. It would mean God were present all the time. Well, yeah. Well, the parents are present all the time. I mean, again, we're just talking about a intelligent creator, one that creates, nothing else. We didn't cause our kid to be punched in the face. You use the word God. I didn't use the word God. I used the word creator. You know, it just has agency to create. Why I'm using this is because they're related. An intelligent creator and a procreator. Both are creating something. Procreation is playing God, if you will. Okay, so I'm going to say we're responsible for the kid being punched in the face, since the kid wouldn't have been punched in the face if we had not created the kid. Parents, I think I said this before, I don't think you agreed, but parents are responsible for everything that happens to their kid. That is the one thing parents should accept when they choose to procreate. Like you said, you know, I see how I want cause to work, but it doesn't. But I can see you don't want it to work, but it does, unless you don't want to accept responsibility for your action of bringing a sentient being into existence, a being that can and will be harmed by being existent. Again, we're talking about cause and effect. You're saying it's merely a prerequisite, but you are the cause of that prerequisite. And I was thinking about, you know, how cause and responsibility are related. And again, as far as usage, I mean, anti-natalists might be using words that aren't typically used in a way they're typically used. We're not really setting a precedent, we're reintroducing a concept that was being discussed 2,000 years ago, but the Christians took over. And then you know, this is my hypothesis, is that once Jesus didn't show up, that opened the door for Islam. Because Islam believed Jesus, you know, was here and was a prophet, but obviously there was something wrong in the story, and then Muhammad came up with Islam, which is just a perpetuation of the myth. So yeah, you were the cause of that prerequisite, and so yeah, I mean, I'll look at responsibility at Merriam-Webster. You know, the quality or state of being responsible. And responsible. Liable to be called to account as the primary cause, motive, or agency. So, you know, cause and responsibility are related. So, yeah, I think cause is, even though it's not typically used in the fashion which is typically used, in the case of procreation, it's appropriate. You're creating. If you back to the intelligent creator, created something, that creator is responsible because it's the cause. Yeah, I mean, there is a natalism bias in society. So whenever you go against that bias, you're going to cause knee-jerk reactions to the statement that procreation is causing harm. You can't have harm unless you make people. If there's no people, there's no harm. So it's more than a simple correlation. Every instance of bringing someone in existence there's going to be harm. There's going to be pleasure too and all that stuff, but there is going to be harm. There's going to be need. You also talked about being the intelligent creator being omnipresent. That's applying something to the creator. I'm just saying it is the creator. It is the thing that created. It sets the wheels in motion. So whatever motions, you set something in motion, whatever happens to you set that wheel down the road, whatever that wheel hits, and if it hits something else, that hits something else, that hits something else, you are responsible for putting that wheel in motion. Okay, so quoting you, for most of us it's worth it, and that, you know, that's an appeal to popularity. Most of us think it's cool. I mean, most people think there's a God, so it doesn't mean it's reflects reality. Also, when you only say, if you said all of us say it's worth it, that'd be different. But you're saying most, so that implies that some of us don't find it worth it, and there's justifiable reasons for not finding it worth it. Life equals loss. So why wouldn't you believe life equals loss? There's a somewhat poignant quote from the movie 28 Days where the character Jasper, who's kind of an asshole, but he does say something funny in the movie, and I'll quote it. No one adult human being is happy. People are born, they have a limited amount of time going around thinking life is dandy, but then, inevitably, tragedy strikes and they realize life equals loss. The whole point of the game is to minimize the pain caused by that equation. Minimizing pain. Now, some people do it by having kids, or making money, or taking up coin collecting, and others do it by getting wasted. So, I mean, yeah, the having kids in there, that kind of is like one of those things that don't belong with the others. Making money, that's fine. Well, it depends how you're making the money, but in general, making money is, you're not risking another's welfare. Coin collecting, sure, no problem there. Getting wasted may or may not be, as long as you're, you know, responsible when you get wasted. That's not a problem. That could turn into harming others, but having kids involves somebody else in your quest to minimize pain. But by having kids, you're actually increasing pain. You're increasing the amount of suffering that's going to happen in the world. You're imposing suffering on another in order to minimize your pain. That's where it all goes south with having kids. Anyhow, yeah, you said you don't believe that I don't think it's worth it, even though, like I say, life equals loss. What makes you think I don't think it's worth it? I mean, can you read my mind? I don't think so. Alright, quoting you, a lot can change at a drop of a hat. Indeed. One can be humbled and find appreciation in the most banal things. That was you. And I'm saying one can be disgusted and find disfavor at the most repugnant things. So, yeah, things can change for the better or the worse in life. That's the whole thing. Is the worse worth the better? I'm saying it's not. You're saying we appreciate life in spite of the bad things. I've heard people use that in spite of before. But matter of fact, yeah, in spite of. I mean, it's like in spite of. You're saying, yeah, if you disregard the bad things, it's worth it. But if you regard the bad things, it's not worth it. I'm not sure if I said it to you before, but the suffering simply has more negative value than whatever positive value of the good things. The good things come at the cost of the negative things. You have to ignore the bad and simply go about eating your hot fudge sundae, right? I mean, never mind the screaming, I'm eating my hot fudge sundae. Preventing harm is preeminent. It just has more weight. Preventing, I mean, you have a choice between eating your hot fudge sundae or preventing harm? Which do you choose? You say there's more harm than good. Yes, especially when harm is that which is unavoidable and is imposed. When you procreate, you're imposing a harmful situation on somebody. We are perfectly justified being angry about being brought into existence. Right? Are we not justified in looking at this world and say, this is just stupid? Why am I here? Oh, I'm not here on my own choice. Somebody brought me into it. I didn't get a preview. Okay. You're talking about, solving the problem, and we're saying the solution is don't create the problem. Don't create the problem in order to solve the problem. Don't create need just to satisfy some of the need. Don't make a mess and clean up half. Right? When you procreate, you're just creating a problem that wasn't there before. There's need there that wasn't there before. And those problems and needs are going to need to be corrected. And in many cases, you can't correct them. You're complaining about behavior of certain people and that they're basically just animals. And yes, we are in fact animals, but some think we are better than animals simply because we have this intelligent brain. But we have no bragging rights to our brain. We didn't design the brain. We are not special. All right, goes back to the determinism thing. We are what we are because of the circumstances we were put into. You can't really say, oh, I am really neat, because what you are is completely dependent on the situation you were put into. The brain created you. The brain maintains you. Everything we do is the brain doing something. We're kind of we're a product of the brain. The brain created us as kind of a watchdog. We're the first witness to what our brain is thinking, and we're kind of keeping it in check, if you will. But it's not. It's the brain keeping itself in check. Anyhow, you're saying I don't think life is something to be regretted. Even though, this is me saying, even though sentient beings are being ground up so that a stupid DNA molecule can replicate, why shouldn't I regret that? I mean, that's what's going on. Sentient beings are being brought into the world and then ground up, so the DNA molecule can get itself, get it into the DNA molecule is the only thing that makes it, that survives us. We get ground up, the DNA molecule gets passed on. I think that's something to regret, especially when you're imposing it. Okay, we need to exist as we need to exist if mathematics needs to exist, or art, or beauty. But none of those things need to exist. The only reason they exist is because we're here. Those are the things those are the needs. We need to do something. We need mathematics. All right? That's the thing about creating need. We need to change the world. We need to make it more beautiful. We need art. We need these things. We can live without them, but to live without them is even more pointless. Yeah, we need to do things, but do we need to exist just so we can need to do these things? So yeah, I think we're getting into I think we already have gotten into the part where we're into the part where I'm saying why I am an anti-natalist. Okay, its use. There's no point in creating need that doesn't need to exist. If existing simply to need, if that's all life is, I just need all the time. Well, that's the point. when you procreate, I mean, you need things. When you're brought into existence, you need things to stay alive. You need things to make you happy. You need these things. You're just creating need that didn't need to exist. I was going to use this example because, like, to drive the point home that you're creating need that doesn't need to exist and that you wouldn't really want if you could have it otherwise. Like, we need insulin. Fortunately, our bodies create insulin. My wife's body doesn't create enough insulin, so she needs to inject insulin. If I were to create that need in you, right, I'm making it so that you need to inject insulin, would you think I was behaving ethically? Is that something you want? Do you want more need? No. Need is unneeded. Okay, I think we're talking about risk now. You're talking about driving. But driving is not the same as drawing a straw. When you go for a drive, there's no chance of your kid getting cancer. There's no chance of getting... I mean, there's a chance that you could get in an accident, and that's it. But it's not the same as drawing a straw in procreation. When you draw a straw for a new being, it could be, you know, a very, very short straw. It's not the same thing as risking going for a drive. I mean, I would say if you're going for a drive without a reason, that would be wrong. Don't go driving if you don't have to. And sometimes we have to drive. So once we're here, and once you're in the game, you have to do things. You're saying you have to be careful and pay attention. Yes. You should carefully consider what you are doing by procreating. Again, you could draw the cancer straw or any number of bad things. Okay, and then I'm saying something else based on what you said. I am not saying that people procreate, hope their baby have problems. But the fact is that their baby may get the very short straw. People that are procreating are effectively stating, I am going to draw a straw and hope for the best. And if it all goes south, it's not my fault. I mean, that's basically what they're saying. But it is their fault. They drew that straw knowing it could be a very short straw. They are responsible for whatever happens to their progeny. That should be a fact. It should be an axiom. Okay, so you saying if we want something, there is risk involved. Sure, if you want to take a risk with your own life, go ahead. AN is saying don't take a big risk with somebody else's life. All right? You're taking a big risk when you procreate, and you're not going to be the one paying the price. Somebody else is. There wouldn't be any pleasure is not relevant. If you weren't brought into existence, I didn't get brought into, you know, I'm not being deprived by not being brought into existence, because the non-existent don't need anything, including pleasure. So, anyhow, okay, taking that line of reasoning to its conclusion would mean we should fertilize every ovum we can in order to increase pleasure. But that would backfire because it simultaneously creates more suffering. Again, I'm saying that suffering has more weight. Yes, life is not all suffering, but the suffering isn't worth ego gratification. It's eat the sundae or prevent suffering. The rational choice is to prevent suffering because suffering has more weight. Okay, so you're saying not necessarily for your pleasure, procreation. People aren't having babies for their pleasure. Yes, they are. Pleasure is simply delight or joy. You're doing it because it will be delightful, not because you can laugh at their misfortunes. I mean, just look at Facebook. I mean, people living their lives vicariously through their kids. I mean, they don't do it because they need more problems in their life. They don't do it because they want to change diapers, right? They don't want to change diapers. Who would want to change diapers? I mean, you have to change diapers if you're going to procreate, but certainly that's not, you're not doing it so you can change diapers. They don't do it because they want to complicate their lives. Who wants to make their lives more complicated? Like I say, they're doing it for their delight and joy. I can't see any other reason why. Okay, you're talking about calculated risk, like when you're going for a drive. And this presented me another reason why I don't like Merriam-Webster, is because I'd have to subscribe to them. Well, it would be a trial, but you know, why bother? My source gave me the definition of calculated risk. And what was that? Yeah, I forgot. Okay, calculated risk. A chance of failure, the probability of which is estimated before some action is undertaken. Right, going for a drive, I mean, you have some control when you're going for a drive, right? You can make sure your car's properly maintained. You know, always scan, especially at intersections. Really pay attention when you're driving. But when you're procreating, I mean, it's very much out of your control. It's talking about creating a new sentient being that's going to have different experiences than you, right? And like I said, you can't. How do you calculate I mean, you could calculate. So it's a pretty good chance that everything will go okay. But there's that chance you're taking with somebody else that could go very, very wrong. So, yeah. You're saying we want to have kids, so we do. I mean, I was reminded of the line, you know, damn the torpedoes. I want to have kids. You're saying forget the risk. But yeah, it's easy for you to say, since you're not the one. I mean, if you want to take a risk for yourself, if you want to do whatever, I jumped out of airplanes in the military, but I can't make somebody else jump out of a plane. I can't risk somebody else because I want to see somebody else. I want to see that person jump out of a plane. If I want to jump out of a plane, I can jump out of a plane. I can't force somebody else to jump out of a plane. This is you saying, when you put someone at risk for your pleasure, you have a problem. Yeah, without question. And that's the whole thing. I can't see any that could be the only reason, is for delight and joy. You're putting someone else at risk to make your life pleasurable, or more pleasurable. Okay, pleasure is not simply a desire to laugh, especially laugh at someone. In your examples, like you want to, you know, put them at risk, and maybe you can see them fall. Again, it's pleasure is delight or joy. Procreation is about pleasure to the giving pleasure to the procreators. Just look at Facebook. Okay, I already mentioned that. Yeah, I do the Facebook thing, and parents are living vicariously through their kids. They're getting pleasure out of it. That's the only thing I can think of. And maybe you can come up with something else. Okay, this is you saying your intention when having a baby is for you to enjoy life. It's for it to enjoy life. Okay. But if they grow up to be a rational person, how could they really enjoy life with all the suffering going on? Again, you're taking a risk that they will see things the same way you do. And most of the time, that doesn't turn out to be the case. Most of the time, kids don't want to be like their parents. The child could look at life and say, "This is simply ridiculous," which the antinatalists, that's where the antinatalists are. They're looking at life and saying, "This is just stupid. Why would someone bring me into this situation?" Okay, this is you saying you want to give life. Actually, I have a video about the gift of life. And yes, technically it is a gift, but it needs a qualifier, which I use in my video, shitty. At least it can be shitty. It can be very shitty. Just because you give someone something doesn't mean it is something desirable. So yeah, a gift just can simply mean you've given somebody something. Indeed, you don't think about making a problem. Right, okay, you're saying, yeah, when you procreate, you're not thinking about you're making a problem, but that is in fact what you're doing. You're creating a new problem. You're creating a problem and then attempting to solve the problem. And the problem didn't need to be made. I think that should be the definition of irrational behavior. Just doing something so you can fix it. You're creating a problem so you can fix it. And I guess pat yourself on the back because you fixed the problem you created. Then you said, let's bring a baby into existence to enrich our lives. That's exactly. I guess that'd be another, at least related word to pleasure, is to enrich. You're saying the more the merrier. That is definitely not the case in life. The more problems there are. Humans are problems in need of a solution. Needs. You create need. We need to fulfill needs. We need to climb the mountain. It doesn't need to be climbed just because we need to do something. We can't just sit here and eat and drink, piss, shit, and not do something else. We need to do something. But we didn't need to do it because we didn't need to be brought into existence. Okay, you saying, I think this is you're trying to give a rational reason for procreating. You're saying, if you think life is good, again, where's your guarantee that your progeny will think the same way you do? You think life is good is not a rational reason, especially when you have stated when life is good and bad. You can't say life is good, therefore I will procreate. You can only say life is good and bad, therefore I will procreate. The bad could be very bad for your progeny, but not for you directly. If your progeny gets the very short straw, it would actually be bad for you too, because, you know, if you had any sense of responsibility, you'd feel bad that your progeny got the very short straw. So it's just bad all around. Okay, so you quoting you again, we have to do things we don't want to do. Exactly. You are imposing a life of doing things we don't want to do. That's a fact. Most of my life, I'm sure most people's lives are doing things they don't want to do. So how is that good? How have you done a good thing by imposing that on somebody? I am glad I exist is not a good reason to think that your progeny will be glad. Quote, you wouldn't want to not exist. Oh, that was the end of the quote. I'm saying, you wouldn't want to not exist, but you're going to not exist. That would be the rational thing to consider when considering procreation. You're going to create something that will not exist in the future. If you say that non-existence is bad, then you're imposing the thing you think is bad on your progeny. But I'm saying non-existence is not a bad thing, since nothing bad can happen to the non-existent. Bad things only happen to the existent. Oh yeah, you're talking about giving someone a present. Well, in the case of procreation, you're giving the present of DNA. One, that's kind of arrogant. You know, my DNA is a good present, right? How do you know that? How do you know the genes you're going to be passing on are good genes? And passing on of genes imposes the need to satisfy need. So is that a good present or a bad present? Again, if I gave you a present that was the need to inject insulin, would you appreciate that? Right? Now I've given you something where you need to inject insulin now. Is that a good thing? Giving you more need than you already have? Okay. It's not rational. This is me just talking, I think. It's not rational to satisfy your want at another's expense. Yeah, yeah, you can do what you want, but not at another's expense. That's not rational. I mean, you can adopt. There's 7 billion people out there. Plenty of them could probably, I mean, I'm sure there's plenty that need to be adopted. Perhaps you could start with a kitten or a puppy from a shelter as a starter. See how that goes. See how you like, you know, complicating your life with just a kitten or a puppy. Don't just go for making a half copy of yourself. I mean, you know, there's already people out there that need you, right? Making a copy of yourself isn't a good way to satisfy your want to nurture. Okay, here you're saying, I wouldn't argue for procreation for the sake of procreation. And I would say now we're getting somewhere. And you're saying maybe I'll get to the points. I think you mean back to my argument. But by making the video why I am an antinatalist, I'm pointing out that I didn't accept antinatalism based on my arbitrary argument. I accepted AN based on the reasons I gave in that video for being an antinatalist. That's the point I'm trying to make you understand. I didn't come to antinatalism by somebody telling me, by someone giving me the arbitrary argument. That was something I just made up. But the only reason I made that up is because I became an antinatalist based on those reasons I gave you. So, yeah, I mean, if this video doesn't, if this video doesn't get you to see what I'm saying with the arbitrary argument, I'm just going to throw in the towel on that one. And just because it seems to me, arguing the reasons why I became an antinatalist seemed to be going somewhere. So, yeah. Yeah, nice cat. In fact, that cat's name is Excellent. It's an excellent cat. It is a nice cat. I apparently named it because you know, we got a bunch of cats, and vast majority are strays. That we didn't. Matter of fact, another one just showed up. A kitten showed up at our driveway, and you know, my wife just, you know, she has to take it in. But yeah, Excellent was, I think it was a stray. But I think how did it work? Like, oh, you got this new kitten, and I said Excellent, and so that's how it got its name. Anyhow, there you go. I don't know how long this is, but thanks for watching.